Now, it's in this Content tab that you get to determine exactly what extra content that you send with the notification. Now, I say extra content because this right here, this standard content, can't be edited, can't be changed. What you can do, however, is you can add to that. Okay? We can add specific constant values, which would include not only constant numbers, but any text. So I can say, hey guys, take a look at this, whatever, and that would become then part of your notification. You can add, in addition to these constant values, you can also add references to attributes that are in your target. So I can go into this attributes here. This is a list. Well, actually, I stated that wrong. I said that was in your target. And in this case, it looks like we're looking at any of the attributes that are currently in your system. And actually, we're going to be taking a look at this notification in just a second. As you can see, we're constantly firing this particular notification. We'll take a look at this and take a look at what content we've configured there. So that uses just about all of it. As you can see, you can go out and specify you want any of these attributes to be incorporated within that. So if I add this, let's say we want to add the value of sine wave, that then becomes something that we add as an attribute value in addition to the attribute values that are there by default. Now, what is there by default are the trigger inputs. So if you've got any inputs into this equation, or to this notification, like this right here, this is the tag in the target that we're monitoring. That's also going to be a standard that we see in the notification. You can specify a web link. Okay, the web links can be to any of our, any of our homegrown applications like RT Reports or Pi Web Parts, or it can be to some other web page. So if you've got another web page you want to link to, you can do that. And then you can finally have either a file that's attached or a file that's referenced. And I'll show you a demonstration of both. So those are things that we can choose to incorporate. Now, what about this last one? This always kind of confused me because if I wanted to add an instant RT web parts trend, how does that become an option, for me? Well, what you'll notice is that's only going to be an option for you if in the notification settings we have configured a web parts server. So if that web parts server is there, then that becomes this option that will show up, or that will be a something that you will include in your notifications, this RT web parts trend. So what's the difference between this instant RT web parts trend and this link that we talked about earlier, a Pi web parts, a link to a Pi web parts page? Well, what we're doing here is making a link to any page within Pi web parts on that server or on your local Pi web parts server. What we're doing here, though, is we're actually generating a Pi web part trend, an ad hoc trend. And that's a page that doesn't exist at this point. It's only going to be generated when a user clicks on that in the notification. So let's take a look at a sample that's already been configured. It's this one right here. As you can see, this one's used just about every option there is in content, and we'll take a look at the result. See, we have the trigger inputs. I didn't add any extra attributes, but I could have, as we described. I have a link to a specific web part page, and also I have a file we're using a UNC reference to a file in ProcessBook that would be launched by ProcessBook. So what's this look like when we actually look at the notification? Well, we can take a look at this because as you may have seen down here with our little notifier from Outlook, we've been receiving notifications all along, and some of them are coming from this particular notification. That's an old one. Let's close that. Let's look at this one. This one just fired. This is the status notification. Yeah, that's the right one. Here are here's the content. As you can see right here, all of these things, name, server, database, start time, etc., state, priority, all those are the things that we had described in the training manual as the standards. Those are the things that you see right here, and there is no changing those. So these are the defaults. You're always going to see that. Now here's that one that you're only going to see if you've got a copy of web parts and you've associated that web parts server with notifications. There we go. And that's that ad hoc trend. That's not an existing web part page. That's just an ad hoc trend that was generated automatically. Now we also have a link here to another Pi Web Parts page. As you can see over in this web browser, I'm not on that page at this point, but by clicking on this, this is going to go out and launch as a new window here a link to that page. We can see that's that page that I made reference to. Okay. I also said I'm going to do a file attachment, and this file attachment option here should, because this file is associated with ProcessBook, this should go out and launch a copy of ProcessBook. And there's our ProcessBook display. So now we can drill down. Now that we've got this rich client, we can drill down and do the things we would normally do in ProcessBook. Okay, finally, let's just kind of wrap up one loose end from earlier. If you notice, there is an option here called Acknowledge. Okay, that option appears there because of one of the settings that I had set up for this delivery endpoint. If I go back and I take a look at our different delivery endpoints here, those delivery endpoints, that's something you're going to find under the contacts. So the one I'd like to look at is this email delivery endpoint. Here's an example. Yes, do you recall we had this option right here when we set up an email endpoint as a delivery endpoint? We had this option right here to include the acknowledgement link. See, that's the end result of that. If you choose to include the acknowledgement link, this acknowledge with comment is going to go ahead and show up. Now, if you haven't gotten to that part of the class yet, this option for standard content, whether we send the standard content or not, that's something you're going to find in the subscriptions section. You can choose within the subscription itself, that's where you would specify to include that standard content or not. So as I mentioned earlier, the standard content, it's always going to be that. So that's not something you can change. However, you can change whether in fact we send that or not. And then using that, what we saw previously in the delivery endpoint, you can choose to incorporate the acknowledgement option within that if there is standard input, or you can just explicitly say yes or no.